It's my pleasure to welcome you back to PERT's third annual conference. This one, the theme is putting language to work. So we're continuing with our second day of the conference with our first panel, so learning French for the workforce in Quebec. Now, our research has shown that French is a key barrier to employment for English speakers in Quebec. This panel hopefully will explore the dimensions of learning French to participate in Quebec's labor market, including French language training, French in the workplace, and the roles of schools, employers, and community organizations. As builds upon our 2021 report assessing the state of French language workforce programs and examining how linguistic minorities access these type of skill training opportunities. As you're hopefully aware, in the last year, PERT has also completed 18 employment profiles looking at the state of employment for English speakers. Both our French language workforce program inventory report and those profiles raised many issues, but also solutions and recommendations. And really hope to continue that conversation today about solutions and recommendations and how we can push things forward. So we're excited to bring together leaders and learners who all bring to the table different approaches or different experiences, either in delivering French language training programs or in learning French for the workforce in Quebec. One thing to note about this panel, it's a bit different than yesterday. We have a couple Francophone guests with us as well, so we've invited them to respond in the language of their choice. And I'd like to begin by welcoming our panelists. So we have Andréanne Gendron-Landry. So Andréanne, I don't know if you want to give a wave, Pedagogical Advisor at the Cégep du Vieux-Montréal. We have Aki Tchitacov, Executive Director of Yes Employment and Entrepreneurship. There, Aki, nice to have you. We have Billy Walsh, Executive Director of l'Association des Sociétés de Développement Commercial de Montréal. And we also have Adam Hall, a French language learner. So that's going to be great mix of people. So we're going to ask the panelists now to introduce themselves in greater detail, but also with one question in mind to get things going. So that question is, and I'll do this one in both French and English. D'après votre expérience, quel est l'état de l'apprentissage du français chez les adultes au Québec? So from your experience, what is the state of French language learning for adults in Quebec? And Aki, it'll be over to you to answer the question first and introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Hello, my fellow panelists. Bonjour aux membres du panel. Ça me fait un plaisir de partager la scène un peu, si on peut dire ça avec vous. I am one of the founders of PERT. I'm very proud about that. And certainly I also sit on the board of PERT. Mon nom, c'est Aki Tchitacov. Pour ceux qui ne me connaissent pas, je suis le directeur général de Yes, Employment and Entrepreneurship. So Yes, for those who might not know us, has been around for 27 years. We're a nonprofit organization. Our mandate is to provide English support services to Quebecers to help them find jobs, to help them start businesses. We work with the artist community, and we're known for our one-on-one programming, through our business coaching and our employment counseling. But we also do our work through workshops. We do our work through networking events, and many of you that are attending today have we had the pleasure of working together on this important work. Alors, juste pour vous donner une idée là, de l'ampleur de notre travail, l'année prochaine, nous avons desservi presque plus de 3000 clients. Et ensuite, on est connu là, pour nos services, et puis c'est une panoplie de services, que ce soit pour l'entremise là, du business coaching ou les conseils pour aider les gens à trouver d'emploi, les événements de réseautage, mais bref, vraiment, on aimerait présenter à nos clients beaucoup de possibilités pour réussir au Québec, pour faire carrière au Québec et pour vraiment attirer du talent au Québec. Alors, pour la question qui nous préoccupe aujourd'hui, c'est la question là, du français. Oui, je peux vous dire que on voit que l'état de l'apprentissage du français chez les adultes au Québec se porte très bien. Il y a de plus en plus de cours et d'étudiants qui veulent apprendre le français. So that's the good side of the coin, which is that the interest is there, and we're seeing that certainly our organization has always offered French as part of our services. We've upped it now in partnership, with RDN and with partnership with PERT. Now we offer, another higher level of French, which is really French for the workforce. That's the name of the program. And so people do want to integrate into Quebec. A lot of our clients come from outside of Quebec. So English is maybe sometimes their third language, and French is really down the list. But overall, they want to be able to find jobs. They want to be able to start their businesses. They want to integrate. So French language becomes a priority for them. There are some challenges, and the challenges are there's still gaps in accessibility and learning options, course availability. PERT did the report that Nick, you referenced that basically puts the spotlight on some of the shortcomings, especially in the regions of Quebec. There's issues around affordability. There's issues around flexibility in terms of times and schedules that allow people who are trying to make ends meet to also be able to participate in these types of classes after work hours. So and there's also a gap, and this is something that Yes brings to the table. There's also the gap around practical French for the employment for the job search for starting your career. So I'll stop there now. Is that okay, Nick? Am I okay for time? I don't want to. Yeah, I want to give everybody else a chance to also continue.
Yeah, obviously much to say, and we'll save that for later in the course of the panels. Thank you for that, Aki. Andréanne, c'est à vous.
Bonjour tout le monde, je suis honorée d'être ici avec vous ce matin. Bonjour à tous les panélistes. Je suis conseillère pédagogique à la formation continue aux entreprises du Cégep du Vieux-Montréal. Je suis dans mes fonctions depuis environ 8 ans et pendant cette période, j'ai mis sur pied un centre linguistique dont la majorité des cours de français se font en ligne. Donc, l'objectif des cours de français, c'était d'aller rejoindre le plus de personnes possible à travers la province de Québec pour rendre accessible, bien entendu, les cours de français. Mais j'ai une double fonction, c'est de faire aussi du développement pédagogique pour des cours de français, de faire des designs, en fait, pour faire des formations le plus proche possible pour les entreprises, bien entendu, pour ceux qui veulent aider les employés à parler en français, mais aussi pour certains ministères ou certaines associations aussi. La question qui a été posée, c'est une question qui est vaste, qui est grande. On pourrait passer quand même un bon 20 minutes à en parler, justement, de la progression du français chez les adultes au Québec. Hier, j'étais au sommet de l'immigration, puis on parlait de l'état de l'apprentissage du français au Québec. Je vais vous donner quelques chiffres parce que les chiffres parlent. 37 000 personnes ont été francisées par le biais des cours du MIFI. Donc, les cours du ministère de l'Immigration, de la francisation et de l'intégration. On peut ajouter à ce chiffre-là, qui est peut-être entre 5 000 et 10 000 personnes qui ont suivi des cours de français à leurs propres frais. Donc, des cours qui se passent, par exemple, dans les centres linguistiques ou dans les écoles de langue ou dans les écoles privées, les universités. Donc, tous les gens qui sont intéressés justement à pouvoir obtenir un niveau de français. Mais par contre, il reste toujours un bassin de personnes qui ne peuvent pas rejoindre nécessairement des cours ou n'ont pas accès à des cours de français qui sont bien pour eux. Il y a plusieurs facteurs, comme disait Aki, justement, c'est l'accessibilité. L'accessibilité, le niveau des cours, par exemple, soit que les cours ne sont pas disponibles. Si, par exemple, les apprenants sont de niveau débutant, souvent, dans certaines régions du Québec, on ne va pas donner des cours de débutants, on va donner des cours d'intermédiaires. Ensuite, il y a toute la question de l'éloignement. Donc, dès le moment où on sort des grands centres comme Montréal ou Québec, ça devient de plus en plus difficile d'avoir des cours qui sont adaptés justement aux réalités des personnes qui sont en emploi, oui, mais des réalités qui sont en région aussi. Puis, il y a tout le côté des critères d'admissibilité. Donc, par exemple, pour l'instant, Le ministère de l'Immigration, de la Francisation et de l'Intégration n'accepte pas les Canadiens d'origine, donc dans leur admissibilité, ce qui va changer probablement en 2023. Mais reste que tous les Québécois d'expression anglaise n'ont pas l'accès à ces cours gratuits du ministère de l'Immigration. Puis on parle aussi des communautés autochtones qui n'ont pas accès non plus à ces cours-là pour l'instant. Donc, mais il y a tous les critères d'admissibilité aussi dans les institutions. Tous les critères d'admissibilité dans les écoles de langue où on fait en sorte de rajouter toujours des processus administratifs. Donc, j'espère que j'aurais pu en parler longtemps, mais je vais clore là-dessus.
Okay, merci pour ça, Andréanne. So Adam, it's over to you.
All right. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis an étudiant de français, but I'm going to speak in English because it's much easier. So I represent ARC, Assistance and Referral Center in the Montérégie Centre area. We advocate for the English-speaking and Allophone community system in a variety of fields like health, education, whatever services they need, and then we refer people to different organizations. And I was asked to participate in this because I was a participant in the French for the Workforce course at YES, and I quite enjoyed it. I agree with everything that was said so far by Andréanne and Aki. I think accessibility is a big one. I think people do want to learn French, and if for those of you who attended yesterday's conference, some of the messaging there that people come in with a lot of I remember hearing like McGill students, for example, come in with a lot of inspiration, and they want to get into it, and then you kind of you get in your little leash, your little group, and you fall by the wayside and start speaking your own language, and that's happened even to me somewhat. I moved here a year ago. I did study in Chicoutimi in the Saguenay 20 years ago in the Explore program and stayed the year. And then I went to France and studied some French and worked in French actually in Paris. But then 20 years, I come from British Columbia, and I lived in a variety of other countries, Turkey, Japan, Korea, Portugal, Sweden, and I never really used French. So I came back last year really enthusiastic, and it's been I work primarily in English, and I'm enthusiastic. It's just sometimes it is hard to really have that experience and that interaction in French. But I try every time I go anywhere. I try to use it. So I'll just try to represent myself as an English learner and answer any questions that people have for me. All right, Nick.
Thanks, Adam. I mean, your story is a great one. So, you know, that's what you're here to share. So thank you for being here. Billy, c'est à vous.
Hello, everyone. Je peux commencer par un bonjour hi, en fait, définitivement. My name is Billy Walsh. I'm the general manager of the ASDCM, what it is, l'Association des SDC de Montréal. And what's an SDC? For the one of you who are coming from, who has businesses in Canada English side, it's like a BID or a BIA, so a business improvement district or a business improvement area. So une société de développement commercial represents their member, and their members are the merchant located on Commercial Street. So in Montreal, mostly major streets are associated as an SDC. And we do advocacy. We provide services to our members, and our members, the SDC, they do promotion, marketing, recruitment, scouting for newcomers, and also advocacy with their borough. So we try to enhance, humbly, we try to enhance the experience of a commercial street in Montreal, and this model of partnership between private and public sector is spread out all over North America and Europe as well. So for the question of of a language factor in our field. A lot of things have been said. I would just say that we don't know really what's the I'm just looking for my the state of French language. Okay, I was looking back to your question, Nicolas. Sorry. We don't have data. We are spreading a program with the help of Cégep du Vieux-Montréal. It's a French classes inside the commerce with the team of the owner, the employees. Maybe Andréanne is going to talk a little bit more about details with the program, but we're on site. And why did we accept that kind of program from the provincial minister is for the ASDCM, speaking another language is just another tool to do businesses. We wish that a lot of businesses can talk different languages, because for sure, when you can have this conversation with your clients, that gives you more leverage for your sales. So that was the mindset that we had when we accepted to develop this program. But there's another fact, because we're working on two levels. We're working with the merchant and their employees to improve their capacity to speak French, but also there's one data that really nous a étonné, which was the fact that dans les dernières années, we've realized that the people that have their mother language in French were not, when they were going to a commerce or a business, they were not asking to be served in French, but they were switching to the English right away because they had this contact in English with the tenant. And when we did this last publicity campaign in fall about using French in businesses, we really put on our vision of this campaign like it's an empathic campaign. And I'll switch in French to express myself and I'll go fast. Mais les gens qui arrivent sur les artères commerciales et qui ont comme langage souvent le deuxième langage, l'anglais, vont avoir une langue familière d'une autre origine. Ça peut être l'espagnol, ça peut être l'arabe ou autre. Quand les consommateurs viennent dans un commerce et commencent à parler en français avec les gens, inévitablement, c'est aussi une façon pour le consommateur d'inclure l'immigrant ou encore le tenancier du commerce à l'intérieur d'une communauté dans laquelle il fait des affaires et dans laquelle il vit. Et on a été très étonnés de voir ce résultat-là d'une étude qui disait que les consommateurs français switchait ou changeait de langage rapidement lorsqu'un entrepreneur n'était pas capable de lui parler en français. Donc, nous, ce qu'on a voulu faire à l'automne, c'est une campagne de publicité pour sensibiliser le consommateur et lui dire, quand tu rentres chez un commerce où la langue d'usage n'est peut-être pas le français, toi, en tant que consommateur et toi, en tant que francophone qui accueille l'entrepreneur, fais l'effort de lui parler en français et invite-le à apprendre davantage le français et à connaître le français et à aimer le français. Parce que pour nous, la responsabilité de parler français dans les commerces n'est pas seulement sur l'entrepreneur, mais bien sur les francophones, et eux aussi doivent faire le geste d'aller vers l'autre. Donc, on trouvait ça très important de travailler sur les deux points, soit l'apprentissage, mais en même temps la sensibilisation de la clientèle. Désolé, j'ai pris un peu de temps, je me suis étiré.
Non, mais c'est quand même important. Merci, Billy. Thanks, Billy.
You're welcome.
So I just have to mention for those our English guests that there is French to English interpretation as well. So you should be able to access the audio feed. If you're having any issues accessing that, please write to the team in the chat. But you should be able to get translation in either direction. So I hope that's working. I saw a comment in the chat, so I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. Now, as we go on, so we've kind of had the introductions from our panelists. That's great. What we're going to do next is we'll have some targeted questions to each of our guests. and then we'll ask the guests to respond. So the first person up is Aki. And so Aki, the question for you is, how might different demographics of English speakers have different needs when it comes to learning French for the workforce?
Well, there are many elements to this. Age, for example. So, young adults, they have different learning needs compared to older adults or people who are in a professional situation. Again, education, highly educated people, they have different learning needs versus people who might have lesser education. They might not have a post-secondary education. Employment, professional people, they have, what's important for them is to be able to function, at their level and be able to do meetings in French, be able to write professionally, send emails, and compared to somebody who's looking for that first job in Quebec, and they're more, they need to have a strong CV, they need to have a strong cover letter, they need to know, what the jargon is in the field that they're looking for. So you understand right there the variety. Income. Some people obviously don't have either the time or the financial means to be able to take advantage of courses that might be available to them. People who have families who need, in order to be able to participate in some of these courses, they need to have access to affordable childcare. And finally, la chose là qu'on va en discuter davantage, mais c'est toute la question là de où on est situé au Québec. Alors, comme nous, comme communauté, comme PERT l'a fait, c'est vraiment notre position, c'est qu'on aimerait que tous les Québécois aient accès à des opportunités pour apprendre le français. Peu importe là, combien de temps il se trouve au Québec, mais c'est vraiment d'ouvrir les portes, et puis je pense que c'est quelque chose qu'on va aborder tantôt, parce que c'est vraiment ça, c'était un point essentiel.
Thanks for that, Aki. So who would like to jump in here and respond and build on? Okay, Andréanne.
Seulement pour rajouter sur les points d'Aki, parce que je pense qu'on a une connexion, on pense exactement la même chose. C'est surtout, oui, l'accessibilité, puis le fait d'être dans un grand centre comme Montréal qui amène les ressources en français plus facilement. Donc, il y a plus d'offres de cours, il y a plus de développement qui se fait, il y a plus de projets pilotes qui vont se passer à Montréal plutôt que des projets pilotes qui vont se faire en région. Moi, je pense que c'est important que toutes les SDC, les sociétés de développement économique des régions puissent en faire davantage aussi pour la population. Par exemple, en Estrie, où il y a une grande communauté de personnes québécoises d'expression anglophone, en Outaouais aussi. On parle aussi de certaines places dans le nord du Québec. Dans le nord du Québec, il y a toutes les populations autochtones, mais il y a aussi toute la capacité d'utiliser les ressources en ligne. Puis ça, c'est une problématique parce qu'il y en a qui sont très habiles avec le numérique, mais il y en a d'autres qui le sont moins. Puis ces gens-là aussi ont besoin de comprendre c'est quoi la compétence numérique. Donc, il y a cette petite chose-là, puis aussi l'intérêt personnel d'apprendre le français. L'intérêt, le goût de l'apprendre. Parce que peut-être aussi qu'il y a de la gêne, il y a de la timidité, il y a un refus peut-être aussi. Il y a peut-être aussi justement le temps. Le temps, c'est important quand on apprend une langue. Puis l'investissement, parce que c'est vraiment un investissement d'apprendre une langue. Puis il ne faut pas que ça devienne une obligation. Parce que quand l'apprentissage d'une langue devient une obligation, on tombe facilement en tant qu'apprenant de langue dans la frustration. Puis c'est là où on n'apprend plus. Donc, il faut que ça devienne quelque chose de plaisant, il faut que ça devienne une expérience intéressante et enrichissante.
Merci, Andréanne. So perhaps Adam or Billy, you want to jump in here as well? Billy, c'est bon? Vous avez quelque chose à dire ou non?
I'm okay as well. I think that it was well covered, so I don't know what I could add.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're moving on here to Andréanne. Donc, Andréanne, quelles sont les préoccupations communes exprimées dans votre domaine? Comment ceux-ci peuvent-ils être abordés?
Encore une fois, c'est une question qui est vaste et qui pourrait prendre vraiment beaucoup de temps à répondre. Les préoccupations, je vous dirais, il y en a 4 grandes. Il y a l'argent, bien entendu. L'argent, c'est qu'il y a certains apprenants qui n'ont pas les moyens nécessairement de se payer des cours de français. Que ce soit dans une école de langue privée, dans un centre linguistique, Cégep, université, les cours peuvent varier de 300 $ à aller jusqu'à 750 $. Puis ça dépend, si on n'est pas dans une université, qu'on ne suit pas un certificat en français langue seconde ou quelque chose comme ça. C'est sûr qu'il y a toujours les organismes communautaires, mais quand on arrive dans les organismes communautaires, on n'est pas sûr d'avoir nécessairement le niveau adéquat ou d'avoir la possibilité d'avoir un cours qui va en corrélation avec le niveau de compétence qu'on a. L'autre chose aussi, c'est le temps. Okay? Ben, justement, comme disait Aki, il y a une conciliation travail, famille, études. Les gens qui arrivent ici au Québec, puis les gens qui sont au Québec ont un travail probablement, ont des familles, vont peut-être aux études, essayer de faire en sorte de lier tout ça et d'apprendre le français en plus, ça peut devenir une surcharge, puis ça peut être un petit peu, pas un petit peu, un énorme frein à l'apprentissage. Le troisième point, ce serait la reconnaissance des institutions. C'est beau d'apprendre le français. Okay, c'est bien d'apprendre le français. Maintenant, il faudrait peut-être que l'ensemble des institutions, autant scolaires que gouvernementales, disent, ben, écoutez, on va reconnaître tous les cours ou les cours de français ou l'effort d'apprendre le français en disant, ben, on va donner une reconnaissance, un papier qui va dire, vous avez tel niveau en français, puis d'uniformiser tout ça. Puis je vais revenir avec mes pistes de solutions. Puis, l'autre chose aussi, ce qui me tient beaucoup à cœur, c'est le design des cours. Comment les cours sont montés, comment les programmes sont faits. Je ne dirais pas qu'on n'est pas dans une nouvelle mouvance, mais il y a toujours la conception et la construction des cours qui sont souvent et restent souvent traditionnels, où l'apprenant est plus un auditeur qu'un participant. Puis, plus tu as un étudiant qui participe dans son cours, qui met en place qui active sa langue, qui met en place sa langue, plus il va retirer des avantages puis des bénéfices. De tout ça, il y a des pistes de solutions. Je pense qu'il faudrait avoir plus de subventions gouvernementales, bien entendu, oui, mais aussi de rendre peut-être un peu plus accessibles les cours au niveau des centres linguistiques, des écoles de langue, tout ça. Oui, on a besoin du profit, mais est-ce qu'on peut aussi penser aux facteurs humains? Moi, c'est ce que je me dis. À un moment donné, il faut que l'équation facteur humain rentre en ligne de compte. Il faut être peut-être un petit peu plus souple aussi en tant qu'organisation ou personnes qui donnons les cours, de mettre plus de souplesse dans les cours, puis d'accompagner les étudiants. Parce que la réussite d'apprentissage, c'est d'accompagner les gens aussi pour qu'ils sentent qu'on les appuie, qu'on est là pour eux, qu'on est là pour les amener à atteindre leur objectif. Diminuer les processus et les évaluations linguistiques d'admissibilité dans un programme, dans un autre programme, essayer d'harmoniser le tout pour rendre les choses plus fluides, c'est comme un petit peu rentrer dans un labyrinthe. Puis là, je parle de peu importe où on applique, il va toujours avoir une évaluation linguistique. Donc, peut-être d'essayer d'harmoniser les choses. C'est sûr que c'est un petit peu peut-être utopique, mais moi, je pense qu'à un moment donné, tout le monde peut travailler ensemble en collégialité. Puis, il y a aussi de créer des cours souples, adaptatifs, qui sont modulables, qui mettent l'apprenant au milieu de son apprentissage, en recentrant le cours sur les besoins. C'est pas vrai qu'un cours est carré. Un cours est supposé être souple, être fluide, pouvoir s'adapter justement aux apprenants. Puis ça, c'est un vecteur de réussite dans l'apprentissage d'une langue.
Merci. La passion est clairement là. So a lot to say, absolutely right, but very well said. So thank you for that. And the human element in all this seems to be a theme I'm hearing from all of you. Does anyone like to add anything to Andréanne's comments? Aki, Billy, Adam?
Yeah, maybe just, bring in the perspective, of the English-speaking community from our standpoint. Je suis tout à fait d'accord avec Andréanne et puis l'approche qu'elle propose, surtout l'idée de harmonisation puis l'idée de partenariat. Nous, on est absolument, on est là. On privilège cette approche-là. Merci, Andréanne. Je voulais juste aborder ça du point de vue de nos clients, les gens d'expression anglaise. So as most of us know, there's a lot of insecurity. That's very fundamental for the people, you know, that we work with and who are trying to build their lives in Quebec. We know the famous self-select where we have, you know, young university graduates, you know, who are able to get by in French. Their French might not be, you know, super fluent, but they have enough French to be able to apply for a lot of the positions that are posted. But they won't because they don't have confidence in their French, and that's really a shame. So we have, you know, that challenge. We have also the challenge of how do you do an interview in French? And I think I'm speaking for most of us. We've been in that chair. I certainly have been in that chair. And, you know, we need to have confidence in the interview. We find ourselves, we think that we're not using the right vocabulary. We're not confident in the way we're presenting ourselves. So one of the things that we're doing, obviously, which is obvious, is really do a lot of interview simulations. So people can actually practice, you know, how to do an interview in French. Another reality is learning disabilities and people that, you know, need to learn in different ways, and that we need, you know, professional development, you know, for our instructors and our teachers. Refugees, there's the challenge of unresolved trauma. So you have people who are coming here under very difficult circumstances, who have to deal with adapting to a new society. There's also unresolved trauma, you know, because they're coming from a war situation. We saw that, you know, with Syrians. We're seeing it with, you know, with Ukrainians, and this has to be taken, you know, into consideration when we're looking at expectations for how long is it going to take for this population to learn French and to be comfortable in French. And it's not, you know, and the time frame that the government has presented of 6 months. I mean, that's absolutely, it just does not make sense on the ground. We have to, so our curriculums, our teachers, you know, need to be trained to be able to help, you know, people that are grappling with unresolved trauma, and of course work in partnership with community organizations that are doing good work working with these populations. And you know, just put on my employment hat. I mean, the important goal here is for people to be able to learn a level of French that's going to help them in their job search. And I remind the conference that, you know, in terms of unemployment levels, the English-speaking community has higher unemployment levels than the French-speaking community. And we also see that we have, you know, our community has a higher level of people that are below the low-income line than is the case with our French counterparts. So those are the issues that we see that we deal with. And there's also, it's very important for us to be able to also open the doors to certain sectors. Let's take, of course, la fonction publique québécoise. On sait là que notre communauté, les gens d'expression anglaise sont vraiment sous-représentés dans la fonction publique québécoise. Ça, c'est un grand enjeu. Nous tous, on a abordé cet enjeu, mais il faut vraiment le souligner parce que c'est pas seulement dans la fonction publique, il y a d'autres secteurs où il y a un travail à faire pour vraiment ouvrir les portes aux professionnels qui sont formés à l'étranger, par exemple. On connaît toutes ces dynamiques-là. Alors, et finalement, c'est comme une perception aussi que ailleurs au Canada, les gens qui sont multilingues sont un peu plus sont plus accueillis qu'au Québec. Alors, peut-être quelqu'un qui est multilingue, puis le français, c'est la langue la plus faible, cette personne a la tendance de se sentir comme un peu là, c'est difficile, c'est plus difficile ici au Québec qu'en Ontario, par exemple. Ça, c'est des anecdotes, on peut en parler. Et finalement, je vais juste dire un mot là sur la loi 96. Et c'est le message que cette loi, c'est dommage, c'est comme Andréanne l'avait dit là, l'expérience d'apprendre le français, ça doit être vraiment une expérience agréable. C'est important de motiver les gens. Et c'est pas ça le message qui chez les gens qu'on voit, la loi 96, c'est pas perçu comme ça. Alors vraiment là, il faut vraiment aborder ça. Et le message, c'est comme, on va pas le faire plus facile pour toi à apprendre le français. Non, ce qu'on va faire, c'est vraiment là, on va te punir parce que ton français n'est pas adéquat. Alors ça, il faut vraiment regarder ce message et puis il y a un débat à avoir là-dessus.
Merci, Aki. Thank you for your comments. Adam or Billy, do you want to jump on and respond to what you've heard from Andréanne or Aki on this question? We're good? Okay, I'll take your silence.
Non, mais je pourrais peut-être ajouter que justement ce que dit Aki, en fait, je pense qu'il y a une grande part de responsabilité des francophones envers les allophones ou encore les anglophones pour faire en sorte que justement ça ne soit pas, comme vous disiez, perçu comme quelque chose d'obligatoire, mais comme quelque chose d'inclusif. Et c'est un peu ce que je mentionnais dans ma première intervention, c'est qu'on essaie de travailler sur deux volets. Le deuxième volet, c'est faire en sorte que les francophones, quand ils se retrouvent dans une situation où quelqu'un en avant d'eux parle en anglais, on aime ça. To switch in English, we love it because it gives us the opportunity to practice. But it's a really selfish behavior. So if we want to be inclusive and if we want to bring those people in our community, we have to make the effort of speaking in French with them and go with their speed, go with their flow, and pas à pas, I think those people are going to feel more included. That's our mindset with the program that I'm going to talk about later on.
J'avoue, à toutes les occasions que je parle en français dans la rue, puis quelqu'un fait le switch, je suis tellement déçu, like, oh man, they heard my accent. They know I'm not a native speaker, so it's always thank you for that.
I was in South America when I was 21 years old, and I've learned, like, I did 2 or 3 classes in university in Spanish, and when I was talking to them, people just realized that I was not a Spanish speaker. And they could have the reflex of switching right to the English because I was a tourist and they wanted to go it faster and easier for me. But it's not the way, because if you want to include people in your community, you have to go with their flow, you have to go with their speed, and just, I think, reward their effort by include them in your language.
Thank you for that. And I think this is actually a perfect segue into the next question, which is for Adam, so we can bring in the experience of someone trying to learn the language. And just a reminder, I believe we were maybe not clear off the top that there is interpretation in both languages, and you can access that in the interpretation tab. So that is now available in both languages for those who are having trouble following along and switching. I know we're switching between English and French a lot there, but you should be able to get a feed just in English or just in French with the original audio or not, and turn that on or off. So again, if you don't know how to do that, please reach out to the team in the chat. So Adam, yeah, as a French language learner, we've heard from a lot of people delivering programs and being involved in helping people learn, but we'd love to hear from you in terms of your experience. More generally, you can kind of respond to what you've heard so far, but also kind of gaps between the theory and then the actual practice when it comes to French language learning.
All right. Yeah. So the obvious one that I think a lot of people already know is we learn metropolitan French, right? Or like formal French in Quebec. Like I think that's what the answer most people are expecting, right? We learn the French from France in most countries in the world, and Quebec is tough because there's the street French, as you mentioned, and then there's the formal French, right? And I think people run into issues with that, including myself. I was lucky to start in Chicoutimi, of all places, right? And I chose that because I knew at that time, 20 years ago, like this is coming out of that referendum, and I knew it would be a pretty isolating experience where it'd be forced to speak French. I chose it over Montreal, but I did find it easier somewhat when I was in Paris in France to communicate with the French that I had learned in school. I found the language easier to process than some of the slang of Quebec. So that's me personally speaking, and still to a certain extent. Another thing, like to follow up on what Billy was saying, and I think a couple of you touched on it, is the people that I think they do it to be nice. And at least where I live on the South Shore right now, very much so in Montreal, I noticed more than when I was in Quebec 20 years ago, people are very bilingual, trilingual, quadrilingual, whatever, but most people speak English to a certain extent, even though they'll say I'm not very good at English, and but and they try to switch, and I think it's with good intentions, but it actually has a negative effect, including myself, because it's too easy. It's too easy, like Billy would say, it's too easy for me to switch to English. Now, my wife is a native Spanish speaker, and she speaks English fluently, and her French is quite good, but she doesn't run into the same problems as me, because when Quebec Francophones speak with her, they don't hear that accent, right? So they're hesitant to switch. She'll sometimes ask for clarification in English because she doesn't always understand in French, but very rarely will people switch to English with her, which I think it helps her to improve, right? And I know people are being nice, but last night I went to the pharmacy and j'ai commencé en français. Mon français, c'est pas parfait, mais je peux parler en français. Je peux demander quelque chose en français. But the woman switched automatically to English, and she always answered me in English, right? And I stayed with my French, just pour niaiserie. No, I just stayed with it just to, why not, right? But she didn't do it to put me down. She was trying to assist me, right? But I think if I could say something to Québécois who voted for the government that pushed Bill 96, try to speak with people in French. And I agree with Billy. Be empathetic, because it's hard to learn. And a lot of Quebecois have traveled, right? Go surrounded by English-speaking countries. It's hard, right? And it takes time, but maybe you can help people with a word here and there. I think, as speaking as a generalization, of course, the Anglo community, at least not in Quebec, but in other parts, like growing up in the Vancouver area, we're very used to being patient and adapting to people who don't have English as a mother tongue. And we're extremely patient with that, because like just growing up, you have to, because where I was living recently, Richmond, BC, I think there were probably more people who don't have English as a mother tongue than do, right? Who live there now. So, but I think other countries, like my wife's from Mexico, living in Mexico for a while, Quebec, people are less patient. And it's not, again, I don't mean it's not intentionally to be mean or cruel. It's just, we're not used to it, or well, I'm not from Quebec, so people, French speakers or Spanish speakers in Mexico, or say in Japan, when I was in Japan, people aren't used to hearing another language as much. So I think patience, but yeah, the metropolitan French, somehow to get that Quebec street slang, because it throws people off, but that's really needed. And I think to kind of speak onto what Andréanne and Aki were talking about, as a language learner, I heard you guys mention this, I think it's hard. You need that interaction, you need that face-to-face, you need that communication. And yes, job interviews and that, it's good to have those mock interviews, but I think to be conversational really gives confidence, right? So maybe smaller classes. I know it's funding and logistics. I get it, all that. But in an ideal world, more one-on-one with people who speak French, more common language, because I think that helps build confidence in an interview, not just memorizing some words and phrases. And I don't mean that's what Yes does. I don't want to give a negative. It was a good course. In an ideal world, that's it, though. Having learned other languages, because I studied in Germany and places like that as well, you gain so much confidence with the regular language. And then the formal book language can build on top of that, rather than the other way around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We'll give other people a chance to jump in.
Adam's
experience, but thanks for that, Adam. Andréanne, oui.
C'est tellement une belle, c'est tellement vrai.
So it's really true what you said. So it's true that Quebecers they switch.
Faire parce qu'on entend un accent, parce qu'on ne laisse pas la chance peut-être à la personne qui est de vraiment parler. Ce que je dis souvent, ce que j'ai dit souvent à mes étudiants, parce que j'ai enseigné, ce que je dis souvent à tous les personnes qui parlent en français, c'est même si la personne te parle en anglais, continue en français. C'est l'autre personne qui va être un petit peu bizarre à te parler en anglais quand tu continues en français. Mais Je comprends aussi, c'est plus facile. C'est plus facile de tous les côtés. Mais toi, ton objectif, c'est quoi? C'est de parler en français. Mais bon, toujours est-il que ça prend de la volonté. Ça prend de la volonté de faire ça. C'est un commitment. OK? Pourquoi je ne le fais pas en anglais aujourd'hui? OK? Parce que justement, je suis gênée. Parce que je parle en anglais. Mais devant 66 personnes, oui, je suis vraiment gênée. OK? Puis pour moi, ça serait un commitment. Pour moi, j'aurais besoin de faire des mock situations in English. OK? Puis c'est vraiment, je dirais qu'il faut que les institutions, les centres de langue, les programmes, les organismes communautaires, les gouvernements, tous les paliers se mettent ensemble, OK? Pour justement alléger ce fardeau-là, OK? Et de rendre les choses un petit peu transparentes. Peut-être que c'est de la culture francophone, anglophone. C'est peut-être, tu sais, on parle souvent des deux solitudes, OK? Mais peut-être que c'est pas vraiment deux solitudes, qu'il faut juste qu'on soit capable de se réunir puis de parler ensemble, tout simplement. Que ça soit à moitié en anglais, à moitié en français. J'en ai des amis anglophones, puis on fait le switch anglais-français. Il y a la moitié des mots que je dis en français, la moitié des mots, il le dit en anglais, mais on est capable de communiquer. Puis je pense que la base, c'est la communication. Puis l'important, c'est qu'on soit capable de s'entendre, de se comprendre. C'est ce que j'avais à dire.
Merci, merci Andréanne. Aki, Billy, est-ce que vous avez des choses à ajouter ici? Anything to add? Okay. Oh, Billy.
I just want to say one more time, I think the key word for my understanding of the situation, my key word is empathy for the French speaker. When you see someone like Adam starting to try and to jump in, having the confidence of starting a conversation in French, don't switch in English. I know, Quebecers, you want to switch in English because you want to improve your English. You're part of North America. You're surrounded by 300 millions of English people speaking. You want to be part of it as well, but accept the one in your community that do the steps. You know, French, we're 8 million. We do not in economic issue. We're not representing a big market for maybe job promotion. You know, when you're Canadian, you have a country of 30 million people and job opportunity. But when you're in Quebec, when you're in Montreal, when someone does the effort, go on and keep your selfish. I will say it like that. Keep your selfish attitude of speaking English and practicing and having some fun with switching language for yourself. Go and embrace the move that someone in front of you does, is vulnerable. He goes on. Go with the flow and dance with him, please.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I'd just like to add to Billy's point. I mean, part of this is also, and I give full credit to our French-speaking entrepreneurs. They provide good customer service. There's a reflex there to provide good customer service. The customer the French is not their first language. They're more comfortable in English. I can also understand that, and it's just good business sense. And I think that's also part of this.
Thanks for that, Aki. Well, we've talked a lot about French language learning and the various challenges and the empathy that's needed, and some of the other kind of developments that are needed in terms of delivery of these programs. But Billy and his organization is actually delivering French language training on the ground in a series of businesses, and I'd like us to move there to the employment and the practical kind of programs that Billy and his team is developing. So I'm leading a bit with my segue here. But Billy, has your organization implemented any useful solutions for French language learning for the workforce? And if so, what are the takeaways from some of those initiatives?
We already started this program in fall with the collaboration of Cégep du Vieux-Montréal, and Andréanne is really a part of this big success. We got a mandate from the ministère, le SPVLF, le MLF, actually. And they ask us, how can we try to improve, to help, to work the French issue in Montreal in businesses? Because they did not say that, but I think that was all in our mind. We did a lot of front pages for the last years, for the last decade, about the fact of commerce in English downtown Montreal. So, okay, what do we do about it? How can we bring those people, and I want to say customer and workers as well, to a point where they can have conversation in French, both of them. So we as I said earlier, we worked on two levels. The first one was with the tenant and the employees. I'll be back there. And the second one was also to convince the French customer to, when they go inside of a businesses and the owner or the employee starts to speak in French or barely speak in French, don't switch to the English. Go on, dance with him. So I'll be back. I come back to the classes. So we started 3 different programs. The first one is a program called Image FR. This program helps tenant and commerces to transform their marketing and commercial tools from the English to the French. Yes, there's a bill. Yeah, there's a law. They have to be. They have to conform themselves to a certain points with the signs and all that stuff. So we help them to go to the next step. So we provide them the files, and then they are responsible for the cost and for the action as well to produce those tools. So we're talking about menus, signs, outside signs, everything that goes inside of their businesses or outside of their businesses that has to be not confirmed, but conformé with the French laws. Second point is the language factor. So with the collaboration of Cégep du Vieux-Montréal, we created an application called Dialogue FR. So you can find it, it's free. You can find it on Apple and Google as well. And this application is directly is focusing on the restaurant workforce. And you're going to find all the vocabulary you need to have a basic conversation in French with your customers. And we will go on, if we have more funds, we will go on with sectors of activities like that, because it's really technical, it's business oriented. Let me just tell you an example. I go in a restaurant in Montreal. I am a French speaker. I cannot speak in English. I have some problems to express myself, but I'm allergic to peanuts. I'm allergic to whatever it is. I need to have this conversation with the tenant, with the entrepreneur, to make sure that my life is not in danger. So this situation or this case study is really like, let's say it's a caricature. But we are, with this application, giving the tenant and the businesses and the employees the first step to understand French in a way that it's going to help their business. It's going to help their sales. And we're going to have, with this application, do it. We're going to have to do it with different type of businesses. Maybe it's going to be hairdresser. Maybe it's going to be for retail. But next step is going to be to specify or to focus on certain type of let's say commerce field. And the last device or service we produced is a classes right in the business. So 10 hours classes with all the employees, really flexible, really oriented on their work, really oriented on their reality. This program has been produced and thought by the Cégep du Vieux-Montréal as well. Andréanne is a key factor to the success of this program. And actually, we have almost like 45 businesses that are subscribed to this program. And we're on-site, flexible, and we adapt ourselves to the reality of the businesses. So basically, in resume, let's say three options or 3 services: Image FR, Dialogue FR, that comes in 2 parts, the application and the classes right in the middle of the workplace.
Thanks for that, Billy. And I'm just going to tell the audience that we're still aiming to end at 10:45. I've got a couple questions myself, and I know that perhaps the panelists want to respond, but if you have questions, get them in there. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going with my questions. So now's your time to get your questions into the Q&A box. And I'm going to permit myself to ask Billy you 2 follow-up questions before we open to the rest of the floor, the rest of the panelists. So the first is just, could you maybe tell us about the incentives for the businesses? Like, are the businesses that you're working with, are they kind of paying their employees to learn on the job? Or are you compensating them for the time? Could you just tell me a bit how that works?
Well, I don't know if those employees are paid during the session. I hope so, and I think so, but Andréanne can answer maybe better than I can do. And this program is free and provided by the Association of the SDC of Montreal.
So Andréanne, do you want to jump in here, peut-être me donner une réponse à cette question-là? Ouais.
Oui, en fait, les employés qui sont intéressés à apprendre le français sur leur lieu de travail doivent être pendant le moment où ils sont au travail. Donc, le propriétaire ou le gérant qui permet à l'employé de suivre 1 heure de formation qui va être, bon, l'employé est payé, bien entendu, par leur employeur, mais le formateur est payé justement par la subvention de la SDCM, tout ça. Donc, ça reste des cours qui sont très souples, très... on a conçu des fiches pédagogiques qui vont répondre justement à des questions très simples, mais au-delà du vocabulaire, au-delà de la grammaire, au-delà de la syntaxe, on est vraiment, vraiment dans la communication. On est dans les mises en situation, on est vraiment dans le commerce, dans le restaurant de la personne qui est là où ils travaillent jour après jour, puis on parle de leur menu, de leur fonction à l'intérieur du restaurant, que tu sois un cuisinier, un serveur, au comptoir, on passe à travers presque toutes les sphères, puis on va même au-delà parce que les formateurs, je les ai formés, on a conçu le matériel ensemble, ils savent exactement où on s'en va, puis ils sont capables justement d'adapter les contenus selon les besoins des étudiants. C'est pour ça que je vous dis, plus les formations sont souples, plus on est capable de répondre aux besoins des gens. Puis la SDCM, c'est toujours un plaisir que de travailler avec la SDCM. Puis je pense qu'on a fait quelque chose d'assez intéressant. Donc, allez voir justement l'application Dialogue FR. C'est quand même plaisant s'amuser à écouter les choses qu'il y a dessus.
Merci. Donc, si j'ai bien compris, if I understood correctly, the employer absorbs the costs of their kind of employees' regular hourly wage. They see the advantage of the training. The training is offered for free. That's correct. Okay, perfect. Billy, the other question I had for you was related to kind of the changing, perhaps it's affected by the labor shortage, but are the businesses that you work with seeing that accessing kind of maternal francophones on the front lines in their jobs more and more difficult? Like, is the type of employee they're hiring at the retail or restaurant level changing, and the need to have kind of French language training integrated in the workplace is becoming more and more important, or were there other reasons or rationale that you kind of move forward with this initiative?
That's a good question. There's a lot of motivation from them. We did not do the survey to understand what's their motivation. Why do they jump in that kind of program? But with the experience and with the chat I had with my team on the ground, I might say that maybe there's 3 factors that make them move towards French. Economic factor, be part of a community, because all the SDC we're working with are French user in their communication, in their Assemblée Générale, in their, let's say, networking sessions. So those people, maybe they want to be part of a wider business community instead of being with their welcoming community, if they are a foreign language instead of English. And I would say that maybe those people are also aware about Bill 96, Bill 101, and maybe I should start to do something, because I know that this exists, and I don't want to be I want to be not maybe part of it, but you know, when we talk about someone said it, I think it's Aki, having a law maybe can fear people. So maybe they're acting also on this trigger. I hope not. I hope it's going to be for the two first one, be part of a community and improve their business. But it's a good question, and maybe it's going to be part of our survey at the end of the program that finishes in March. But hopefully we're going to have a new wave, and we'll be able to provide those services to our businesses in Montreal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep us in the loop about that. We'd love to hear it. Certainly, you know, our research shows that retail and those kind of frontline jobs are jobs that English speakers occupy nonetheless. And if they have challenges in learning French, you know, or having French skills, and it's always important to ensure they can improve French skills in their workplace. So we're very interested in that issue. So keep us in the loop.
Yeah, no problem.
We have about 5 minutes left. I see one question from the audience from Jacqueline, so I'm going to get to that. But I'd love to hear from Aki and Adam. I know that you also have a program. We've touched on that a little bit, but if Aki, you could maybe give us a little more details and say about a minute or two about the work that you're doing at Yes. Perhaps bringing in also the work with RDN, and then Adam, I just want to hear from you a minute or two about kind of your experience as someone arriving here. Clearly, you have some background in French, but what it was like to kind of search for programs and also kind of try to learn in the workforce.
Yeah. So and Adam, it's so wonderful to have you on the same panel, right? I mean, we complement our presentations so well. So French for the workforce. This is basically our key French program right now. And as I said, yes, it's about helping people to navigate the job search and building that confidence, so you can apply for those positions that require a high level of bilingualism. So that, but even you feel better as a citizen of Quebec, and you do see your future in Quebec. So it fundamentally, it's about being practical. And as we discussed, there's the academic French and the school taught French, but then there's the French that we need that's more practical in order to be able to understand job postings, in order to be able to do your interview, in order to be able to have your elevator pitch. And that's part of it. The other part of it is, and this is where the partnership with RDN, the Regional Development Network, is so important. It's also about people who work in the community sector, who are supporting the community, who are interacting with government. For those people, for those leaders in our community, also for them an opportunity to up their French, so they can do a better job in the services that they're providing to the community. But also for somebody as well, there's work to be done for that population that does have a job, that is building their career, but that would like to go further in Quebec, and give them the opportunity, to improve their French. So it all comes back to the core principles that Andréanne and Billy and I look forward. Vraiment, j'ai hâte de continuer cette discussion avec vous. C'est vraiment très encourageant, les initiatives que vous avez mises en place. Je vous vraiment félicite, parce que je vois la complémentarité avec notre travail, puis nos clients qui vont sortir de nos services, mais qui veulent continuer leur parcours, surtout là, s'ils sont intéressés à devenir des entrepreneurs. Cet élément-là, Billy, le programme que vous proposez, ça peut être très intéressant, et puis c'est comme des ressources additionnelles que nous, on peut partager avec notre monde. Et ça, c'est très, très valeureux. So all to say, the core principles, adaptable programming that has empathy, that's delivered with empathy. Bridge building, these are the core principles. These are, the pillars that we should be building on that will advance the learning of French. And my final comment is, in terms of our program, we also have the advantage of having, a great teacher, Louis Lutiec, who is a Québécois de souche, mais qui a l'expérience, qui connaît très bien notre monde, et puis qui s'attend très bien, qui comprend les différentes réalités là des gens, et qui adapte son programme à ces gens-là. Parce qu'on met l'emphase sur un parcours qui va continuer pour la personne et qui va être vraiment avantageux pour tout le monde, pour l'individu, mais ainsi que pour le Québec.
Thanks for that, Aki. Oh, Billy, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I just want to add something to the conversation because we're working with the businesses, and I don't know from which field of work people that are in the conference come from, but there's a reality actually in many businesses, but specifically in street commerces, street businesses, they're facing a lot of challenges. They're facing a challenge of inflation. They're facing a challenge of raise for the rent in Montreal. It's not new. You heard about it for the last years. They're challenging a multiplication of the communication platform in their own business. Before, you had to put on a publicity or advertising in the local newspaper or a local radio station. Actually, you have to be really performing on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, and also to have a nice showcase. And there's a multiplication of the platform and the contact point to reach out your customers. Then they're asking you to go on e-commerce because you have to do business there as well. And you're facing a crisis of employees because you cannot find people working in your own commerce. So you do 60, 70, 75 hours to keep your dream, your commerce open. If we have the language factor and it's an obligation, people are not going to go there. They're going to resist because they know that they can still do business in English. It runs for sure. But if they have French, it's a new tool to do more businesses for themselves. It has to be fun. It has to be flexible. It has to be cool. We have to give the tenant, the employees, the will to go further. And that's our role and that's our objective right now. If they want to go further, we're going to provide them new classes. But I think the approach is really important because businesses actually door to door, moms and pop shop, they're facing a lot of issues and challenges. And French has to be cool.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for jumping in there, Billy. We are slightly over time. I'm going to let us go to 11 because I'd like to answer Jacqueline's question. If someone can answer Jacqueline's question, I'll give it to one of you to respond. And then I'd love to hear, Adam, you just kind of give us your final thoughts on kind of the experience of being a French language learner coming from abroad from the rest of Canada. So Andréanne, the question, or I don't know if it's going to be you who's going to answer, but Jacqueline, their organization is funding partners providing second language conversation cafes, mentorship workshops, online language exchange partners to supplement formal language training. Thoughts on this strategy, and do you know of available resources, guidelines for these informal language acquisition activities? J'imagine que c'est toi, Andréanne, mais si quelqu'un d'autre veut répondre, ils peuvent aussi.
Je peux commencer, il n'y a pas de problème. Il y a beaucoup de ressources, en fait, qui sont à la disposition. J'en nomme quelques-unes des ressources, mais je pourrais peut-être faire parvenir aux organisateurs de PERT une espèce de webographie ou de link Internet qui pourrait, ou peut-être seulement on pourrait être en communication, Madame Vachon, si vous voulez. On a une grosse portion qui est de vocabulaire qui nous sont offerts par l'Office québécois de la langue française, qui ont vraiment des listes de vocabulaire explicatives, des exercices aussi sur les métiers au Québec. Ensuite, par exemple, les infirmiers, le génie, l'informatique, on peut continuer. Tu as tout référence francisation, une partie est accessible en ligne et gratuite. Il y a aussi tout ce qui est fait par le CCDMD, qui est le Centre collégial de matériel didactique, où il y a beaucoup il y a vraiment une grosse... il y a plein d'activités pédagogiques, d'exercices, puis j'en passe, il y en a vraiment beaucoup. Puis je pense qu'en fait, quand on est un organisme ou une organisation, il faut vraiment... Il faut peut-être aller voir aussi puis qu'on veut monter son propre matériel aussi. Peut-être aller voir dans les benchmarks, dans les compétences essentielles. C'est à partir des compétences essentielles qu'on a monté d'ailleurs le dialogue FR, cette formation, parce qu'on va vraiment aller chercher ce que les gens ont besoin finalement. Donc, allez voir dans le benchmark Canada. Allez voir aussi dans l'échelle québécoise des compétences en français des adultes. Il y a une quantité de ressources pour être en mesure de produire du matériel. Il y en a déjà qui sont produits, puis il y en a qu'on peut justement adapter à notre secteur d'activité. Mais ça aussi, c'est une longue discussion, puis ça me ferait plaisir de partager.
Merci, Andréanne. Well, we're going to take you up on that offer. We're going to get that web-ographie que tu as mentionné, puis on va trouver une manière de la mettre sur notre site ou partager avec tout le monde. Adam.
All right. So just to close it out, I wanted to say to Aki again, I did like the course, and I already expressed what I think could be improved. I think Louis is excellent, by the way. I agree. He's an awesome teacher. So I recommend it to anybody, because you have insecurities about CVs and you know, cover letters and interviews, because every culture is a little bit different, even though we're in the same country. So I think those were really positive things. I also agree with Billy. I think it needs to be made fun. People need to feel included, right? And sometimes there's everyone knows the labels like Anglophone, Francophone, and I think just encouraging people to interact more. We moved here, my wife and I, with our baby, who's now 20 months, we moved here for him to learn French and for ourselves, right? My wife really loves the French language. She studied for 4 years in university. I had my experience from before. So we came here. I don't want to talk too much politics too, because I mean, you never talk politics, right? Or what is it? Politics of religion. But the Bill 96 did put me off, to be honest, as an Anglophone, from an interprovincial Anglophone who migrated over here. I found it forceful. Like I do love French, and I really enjoyed my time in Quebec when I was here. And every time I visited, I've close friends who are Francophone here. And yeah, I just I feel that I kind of agree with Billy. I think there's got to be a better approach to encourage people. There's a Aesop's fable with the sun and the wind and the man with the coat. You probably all know it, right? Or the wind blows it and the sun heats it and the man removes his coat. I agree with the sun. I think you guys know the fable. I won't go into it too much, but I think that's a nice approach to language. Anyway, I appreciate. Hey,
we're into the fable territory now.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good
Anyway,
way to end. But thank you for sharing your experience. What I've heard from everyone is that they're real people trying to learn language who move here because they love the French language, that having an approach centered on them that's flexible, that takes into account that reality, that approaches them with empathy is so important. That's what I've heard from all of you. I know we can probably keep this discussion going. I know I'm over time. I want to give people a chance for a bathroom break, grab another coffee, a tea, whatever their fancy, perhaps a smoothie. So I'm going to have to end the panel, but I wanted to thank Andréanne. Merci beaucoup, Andréanne. Merci beaucoup, Billy. Thank you so much, Aki, and thank you, Adam, for your time. And thank you to the attendees for being generous with us and letting us going a bit over. We're going to be back on in 7 minutes. So with a panel on French and Quebec's professional orders. So the discussion will continue about language learning, this time looking more specifically at professional orders and the barriers for people to join the professional orders. It's going to be a great panel. So thank you to everyone again, and looking forward to seeing at least some of you very shortly.